to do without adult supervision, and teleporting was one. "Will Dad get mad?" "Not at you. That's all that matters," he assured her. "So we doing this?" By this, he meant teleporting to the alley behind the diner. Knox knew the alley was usually abandoned except for the occasional stray animal, but he sent out a magical feeler first to be sure they had the all clear. It wouldn't do for their abilities to come to light in small-town USA. "Yeah!" "Hold on tight, kid." They arrived in the blink of an eye, much to Chloe's delight. Hand in hand, they crept around the corner of the building and made a run for the front door of Monica's diner, laughing the entire way. The sight that greeted him stopped Knox short. Spring Thorne. She leaned her elbows back against the long counter, which had the effect of pushing out her perfect, pert breasts as she flirted with Tommy Tomlinson. But looks could be deceiving. They certainly were on the part of Spring. One had only to look at her to see a sultry siren with tawny hair and dancing jade-green eyes. But Knox knew she was far from the sexy goddess she appeared. Spring's bright white aura was untouched, a clear indication of her virgin status. Yet based on the invitation in her eyes, she was clearly trying to rectify that little problem with Tommy. Fury unlike any he'd ever known swamped him. It also confused him. He didn't want the complication that came with a relationship, and he absolutely didn't want the complication of Spring's innocence to contend with. But the sight of her making the moves on Tommy woke the beast in Knox. When she threw back her head and laughed, her long, lean throat was exposed. That creamy expanse of skin was temptation itself. It begged a man to taste the silky sweetness there, to suck on her throat and to mark her as taken as a warning to all other men. "Knox?" Chloe's uncertain voice penetrated the angry haze clouding his brain. With great difficulty, he tore his gaze from Spring's beautiful body and glanced down. "Table, booth, or bar?" he asked. "Booth in the back. Can we ask Miss Spring to have dinner with us?" He suppressed a grimace. Chloe was a fan of all things spring-related, the flower shop, the Thorne gardens, the infuriating woman herself. "It looks like she's busy." "No, she's coming this way." Knox's head whipped up. Sure enough, Spring sashayed in their direction with a wide, welcoming smile directed toward his little cousin. Was it possible to be jealous of a kid? "Chloe!" she cried, as if the sight of the child was the most delightful thing she'd ever experienced. And that was the crux of Knox's obsession with her. If she found the simple everyday that joy-filled, what would the serious aspects of life draw from her? He could only imagine what her enjoyment of sex would bring. Chloe released his hand to run forward for a warm hug. "Did you already eat, Miss Spring? Do you want to join us?" Wary eyes rose to connect with his gaze across a short distance. "I don't want to interrupt your dinner," she said in her soft, hesitant voice. Knox should have demurred and told her that she wasn't interrupting, but he couldn't bring himself to offer up the social niceties. "Knox doesn't mind. Do you, Knox?" Chloe turned wide, pleading eyes on him. He forced a smile. "Of course not." Spring squatted and with the tip of her finger tapped Chloe's nose. "Then I'll gladly accept." As she rose, Tommy stepped forward and rested a hand on her waist. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Yes, I'll be there," Spring agreed. Tommy's hand lingered as he tried to delay his departure. The desire to sever that hand from Tommy's body just about caused Knox's head to explode. "Come on, Chloe. Let's leave these two alone for a minute." "We'll be back there, Miss Spring." Chloe called over her shoulder as Knox practically shoved her toward the back booth. With any luck, Spring would change her mind and head off with Tommy. While the image of the two of them together tore at his sanity, Knox silently hoped Spring would find another man to attach herself to. For the last 6 years, she'd taken every opportunity to throw herself at Knox. Each and every time his answer was the same: "Not going to happen." She was like a pit bull with a bone and refused to accept no. Remembering the sight of her on his doorstep in her tiny emerald bikini caused his saliva glands to dry up and his brain to malfunction. The gentle slope of her breast had scarcely been covered by the triangular scrap of material, and his hands had itched with the need to touch. The open longing in her bright green gaze had nearly been his downfall, but he'd stuck to his guns. When she stalked away, he caved to his inner male chauvinist pig and watched her ass twitch its angry rhythm until she was out of sight. He might have a strict policy of not getting romantically involved, but he wasn't dead. Any man with a pulse wouldn't have been able to tear his gaze from those firm-ass cheeks. He swallowed hard at the memory and pretended interest in the menu before him. "I guess Miss Spring doesn't want to date you anymore, Knox," Chloe said.